In the heart of a storm, where rain lashes against glass like shards of glass slicing through skin, the thin veil of control shatters. Betrayal hangs in the air like a noose, tightening with every heartbeat, and the room itself seems to pulse with tension, alive with the echoes of secrets too dangerous to be revealed. Here, alliances crumble in silence, loyalty becomes a fragile illusion, and every glance, every movement, carries the weight of revenge. What was once hidden festers, and when it erupts, nothing remains untouched, no one survives unscarred. This is a world where rage is a weapon, deceit is currency, and survival demands choices that crush the soul. Prepare to witness the collision of fury, fear, and obsession, as the line between predator and prey vanishes in the storm's merciless embrace. Jacob stormed into the room, his gaze wild and unrelenting, his body trembling like a taut string ready to snap. Rain pelted against the glass, sliding down in streaks that mirrored frozen drops of blood on the wooden floor. Every step he took was a drumbeat of fury, reverberating through the space, shaking the walls and everything within them. He lunged at Hayley, gripping her by the collar, forcing her into the corner where shadows and flickering light collided, blurring the line between fear and madness. Hayley recoiled, trying to shrink away from him, but escape was impossible. Each shove, each grasp, made the air itself thrum with tension. The walls groaned under the impact, the lamp swayed violently, casting jagged, trembling light over two figures locked in a violent ballet of rage and despair. Jacob's face contorted, veins standing out like ropes under his skin, eyes blazing red with an uncontainable wrath. The fury within him was not merely reaction, it was accumulation, the product of months of suspicion, resentment, and shattered trust. Hayley sank to the floor, tears mingling with rain streaming through the cracked window, forming a chaotic tableau of betrayal and helplessness. Every heartbeat for her was a reminder of the treacheries she had woven and the consequences now returning like a predator circling its prey. She was no longer in control, the strings she had once pulled were now ensnaring her in their cruel twist. Outside the doorway, Naomi's figure blurred under the rain, silent and observing. She stood at the threshold of the storm, witnessing the violent collision of vengeance and desperation. Each flash of light across the room revealed not just physical confrontation, but the collapse of trust, the disintegration of loyalties, and the weight of unspoken schemes. Naomi felt the cold press of inevitability. Inaction was a survival tactic, yet her conscience flared with unease. Every step she contemplated was shadowed by the realization that she, too, was implicated in the web of deceit, if only by observation. The rain's rhythm grew more insistent, hammering against the walls like a relentless drum of judgment. In the midst of the storm, an inner battle raged within each of them. Jacob wrestled with the beast within, torn between love, obsession, and unrestrained fury. Hayley grappled with regret and panic, every ounce of cunning now futile against the momentum of Jacob's wrath. Naomi balanced precariously on the edge of action and passivity, caught between moral obligation and the instinct for survival. The room was no longer merely physical space, it had become a crucible, testing their limits, exposing their deepest fears and desires. Every item displaced by their struggle, the shattered lamp, the splintered wood, the streaks of water across the floor, was symbolic of the fractured lives, broken promises, and fractured loyalties within the storm. Time seemed suspended, each breath and heartbeat magnified, the air thick with anticipation and dread. There was no retreat, no solace, only the pressing weight of decisions yet to be made and consequences that could not be avoided. The room, the rain, the shadows, and the relentless pounding of water against glass became participants in the drama, amplifying every twitch of muscle, every pulse of anger, and every shiver of fear. Jacob's mind churned with images of past betrayals, each memory fueling his rage, twisting it into something more dangerous, more consuming. He was both predator and victim, trapped in a cycle of vengeance that left no room for reason. Hayley, once manipulative and calculating, now confronted the raw power of anger she could not contain, realizing the stakes had escalated beyond her control. Naomi, witnessing this, understood that neutrality was a luxury she could no longer afford, and yet any step toward intervention risked igniting further violence. The storm outside mirrored the storm within. Lightning cast grotesque shadows across their faces, and thunder rattled the walls as though echoing their turmoil. Every movement was deliberate, every glance loaded with accusation and fear. The room itself seemed alive, bearing witness to the unraveling of human patience and restraint. Their struggle was not just physical, it was psychological, emotional, elemental. No resolution was in sight. Every instinct, every suppressed resentment, every hidden motive converged in this single, saturated moment of chaos. Jacob's fury threatened to obliterate everything, Hayley's desperation clawed at her sanity, Naomi's inaction weighed like chains upon her conscience. They were trapped within a hurricane of human emotions, each decision a potential spark that could ignite devastation. The storm outside would not cease, and neither would the storm that raged within them, for every secret, every betrayal, every unspoken truth demanded recognition, demanded confrontation, demanded reckoning. The storm had not relented. Rain continued to batter the world outside, each drop a drumbeat echoing the chaos within the walls of that shattered room. The air was thick with the residue of rage, of betrayals laid bare, of ambitions and fears that had clawed their way to the surface with merciless insistence. Jacob leaned against the fractured wall, his chest heaving, each breath a mixture of fury and exhaustion, the blood pounding in his veins like a warning siren. His eyes, still red and wild, darted across the room, tracing the remnants of the struggle, the upturned furniture, the shattered lamp, the water-streaked floor that mirrored the storm outside. In that reflection, he saw not just the physical ruin, but the ruin of trust, of alliances, of everything he had once held dear. The line between vengeance and self-destruction had blurred, leaving him suspended in a liminal space between triumph and obliteration. Hayley remained on the floor, trembling, soaked, but something had shifted in her, a recognition of the depth of the abyss she had opened for herself. Every scheme, every manipulation, every whisper of control she had attempted now seemed hollow against the raw power of fury she could neither anticipate nor contain. Her mind spun through a labyrinth of regret, anger, and fear. There was no redemption here, only reckoning. She felt the cold realization that her survival would demand sacrifices she had never imagined, decisions that would stain her conscience and her soul with indelible marks. The person she had tried to control, the person she had underestimated, had emerged from the storm as a force that defied all calculation, leaving her scrambling at the edge of a precipice with no clear foothold. Naomi stood at the doorway, water dripping from her hair and clothes, her figure barely distinguishable from the shadows cast by the flickering light. She had watched, silent and immobile, as the interplay of rage and fear unfolded, as long-buried truths erupted like molten rock, consuming the fragile structures of human trust. Her own conscience had battled with instinct, weighing the cost of intervention against the cost of passivity. And now, in the aftermath, she felt the weight of responsibility press upon her shoulders like a physical burden. She had been an observer, a witness, and yet she could not escape complicity. The choices she had deferred, the lines she had refused to cross, all culminated in a moment of haunting clarity. Survival was never pure, never clean. To act or not to act was to navigate a minefield of consequence where every step could trigger devastation. The room, soaked with rain and the residue of violence, seemed to hold its breath, a suspended witness to the unraveling of human restraint. Shadows danced grotesquely across walls scarred with impact, their forms twisting and bending in time with the tremors of emotion that had filled the space. Jacob's fury had burned through every layer of deception, laying bare the raw, unfiltered motivations that drove each individual in the room. Hayley's desperation had collided with his wrath, leaving fragments of control shattered like glass underfoot. Naomi's hesitation had allowed the storm to rage unchecked, yet it had also preserved a thread of clarity amid the chaos. The interplay of ambition, fear, and raw human instinct had reached a crescendo, leaving nothing untouched and no one unscarred. As the rain slowed to a relentless drizzle, the echoes of the struggle lingered, haunting every corner of the room. Jacob's shoulders sagged, a fleeting moment of exhaustion amid the turmoil, yet beneath that fatigue lingered the embers of a wrath that would not easily fade. Hayley, still crouched on the floor, lifted her head, her eyes reflecting a mixture of terror and determination, understanding that the game had changed irreversibly. Naomi stepped further inside, the weight of observation and inaction heavy upon her, aware that the choices made in the eye of the storm would reverberate long after the rain ceased. Outside, the storm clouds parted slightly, allowing pale light to pierce through, but within the room, the aftermath remained, a testament to the collision of fury, betrayal, and survival. Every pulse, every heartbeat, was a reminder that some battles leave scars not only on flesh but on soul, and some storms never truly end, they merely recede, leaving a landscape forever altered, forever haunted by the echoes of rage and despair.